first video from my phone. So see how this works out. Alright, so I promised that I would tell you guys my little story. So, I was healthy in my childhood. My sister was the one who got sick a lot. And, that all changed when I went to college. In March of 1994, I contracted a very serious case of infectious mononucleosis, aka mono. And I had to take my first of 5 medical leaves, and let me tell you, I had to be gang convinced by my medical team at that time. I did not want to leave school. Like, I was this total dork nerd growing up. Didn't really have friends, so like, just felt really awkward and not really good at anything. Like, I didn't know who I was or what my deal was or whatever. And something clicked in high school, and I really fell in love with academia, and so university was like the best time of my life, and I was doing really well, and then I got sick. And let me just tell you, if you get mono, rest. Take care of yourself. I didn't. I was little Miss Perfectionist Overachiever. I can handle it. I want to graduate in 3 years, girl. Yeah, hindsight's 20/20, and let me just share my clear vision with you. Take the time to get well, because dude, if this shit stays active, oh my god. It's pretty rare, like, I'll say that now, like, what happened to me is pretty rare. But the virus stayed active and did systemic damage. So, I took my first medical leave. I was a chemistry major and undergraduate. And absolutely in love with my studies. I fell in love with organic chemistry and wanted to be a synthesis chemist. And I had this really cool high school fellowship where I got to go study at the university, which was really neat. So yeah, like, I had my whole future planned, you know, and whatever. And then March 94, I got very sick. So my first medical leave lasted about 3 days, and then I freaked out and, like, wanted to go back to school. So I compromised. I reduced my course load to 7 credit hours, and I went back. I shouldn't have. I was sick as a fucking dog, and so fatigued, and I had to sit in a chair washing dishes or taking a shower and sleeping 14 hours a day and just miserable sick. And it was quite some time to get over that. And then afterward, I had very low immunity. So I was always getting sick. And this horrible rumor got started in the chemistry department that I had HIV. Yeah, one of the graduate students working in the lab that I worked in actually asked me, "Oh, do you have AIDS or something? Because you're always sick." It was horrible. I was like, really, really just, oh my god, people don't deal well if you're sick and they think they can catch it or whatever. Like, all of a sudden I'm this fucking pariah, right? It was bad. Okay, so stuck it out, my 7 credit hours. And in the summer of 95, I went on a chemistry, was it 95? 95. went on a chemistry fellowship to study organometallic chemistry at Ames Lab, which I don't know if you guys know, but it's like a government facility for research in Ames, Iowa. And it was a lot of fun, but the chronic damage was starting to manifest, and I wasn't able to finish my fellowship. I had to leave early. Zero compassion for my preceptor, by the way. Zero. So, on the plane ride home, I was thinking, and I was really sad because pure sciences, there's no compassion whatsoever. And I was asking myself, okay, how do I combine my love for chemistry with compassion? I had met a girl in my freshman year of college who was a pharmacy student, and I thought, perfect. Chemistry plus compassion, right? So I changed my major to pre-health, and there was a huge uproar in the chemistry department because, well, I was a really good student, and I had gained some notoriety and had a publication and whatever, so people expected great things from me, whatever. Anyway, so I switched, and it's funny because there's this huge rivalry between like pure sciences students and health sciences students. And yeah, so I got a lot of enemies in the chemistry department after that. So I left my niche, right, like where I was comfortable, and I switched to be pre-health, and holy shit, dude, like, talk about intimidating. Half the school wanted to be fucking either a pharmacist or a doctor, right? So, I mean, half the university, like, was it like 2/3 the undergrads were like pre-health or something? It was crazy. Anyway, took my exams and had my interviews, and I got into pharmacy, which was awesome. But yeah, by this time, my heart problems were starting to develop, and my GI problems were starting to develop. Excuse me. The first symptoms I had with the digestive stuff was low blood sugar. I'd get dizzy and weak and have these episodes of blood sugar crashing. And I found this book on reactive hypoglycemia that had a diet you could follow, and started modifying my diet, and that helped some. But yeah, my heart, I was getting all these funny heartbeats. So I just kind of had these vague symptoms that didn't really make sense at first. But eventually, too much was going on. It was scary. And so I went through this escalating hierarchy of doctors trying to figure out what the fuck's wrong with me. And in April of '97, I went to Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona. We stayed for several weeks, and I learned I had some cardiac conduction damage and some digestive nerve damage that was causing, in the case of my heart, arrhythmias, in the case of my bowel, gastric dumping, blood sugar spikes and crashes, and just lots of craziness, diarrhea and malabsorption, and like a whole mess of stuff. Got on some meds, had a procedure done to get rid of the extra circuitry in my heart that was beating incorrectly. And I was feeling really well after that. I had a little period where I was doing really great, and then I think it was mid-98, and I was dating this surgeon, and interestingly enough, the new heart problem that was bothering me the most is that my heart rate wouldn't pick up when it needed to. Like, when you exercise or go up a flight of stairs, your heart rate increases to give you enough blood flow to the muscles to be able to walk, whatever. The condition is called chronotropic incompetence, if you're curious. Anyway, the symptom that bothered me more is that in sexual activity, I couldn't climax anymore. My heart would beat harder, but the rate wouldn't increase, and I couldn't get there, so to speak. And that really frustrated me. So I was talking to my boyfriend, and he was like, you know what, like, I checked my pulse, and the beat was like in the 40s or whatever. The heart rate was like 40s. So I called my cardiologist at Mayo, and I was like, hey, this is what's going on. And he was like, don't worry about it, it's normal after the procedure you have, I'll see you in December or whatever. So I told this to my boyfriend, he's like, you know what, no, I don't like that. He's like, you should go see another cardiologist locally. So I was like, alright. So I booked an appointment, saw a cardiologist, got some tests done. And he told me I needed a pacemaker because the conduction damage had progressed, and the natural pacemaker in my heart wasn't working properly. So October 30th of 1998, I got my first pacemaker implanted. And wow, that was an experience. The thing is, a battery-delivered impulse feels different than a natural heartbeat. So it was maddening because, dude, your heart beats often, and every time I feel this weird, strange, abnormal, foreign contraction type feeling. It was completely surreal. I don't even know how to explain it. And I was going to the pacemaker lab like every few days to get adjustments. I guess that's fairly common in young people who get pacemakers. They're a lot more sensitive. Geriatric patients, on the other hand, are not very active and not as in tune with their heart, I guess, something. But yeah, if you're young, it's quite an ordeal to get used to it. Eventually, I lost my intrinsic heart rate altogether, and I'm now dependent on my pacemaker. Got the second one in 2000 and I think 2005, August, September of 2005, I think it was, yeah. And I had to go on some antiarrhythmics over that course of time as well, and treatment for the malabsorption, lots of meds and all that. Started getting chronic nausea along with the diarrhea from the malabsorption that was also progressing. There was nerve damage in my intestines that was causing the malabsorption. So, interestingly enough, I was prescribed at the time a version of what's now known as the zone diet, the 40-30-30. 40% of calories from carbs, 30 from fat, 30 from protein. It used to just be a prescription for blood sugar management before it became this big weight loss diet trend. Anyway, it's a lot easier to follow now. They have zone, and they have balance, and they have, God, what else? Several different programs that you follow that regimen, but it really does help actually to, slow movement of things through your gut and stabilize your blood sugar. I can talk about that more later, but anyway. And I kept in school, whatever. And in November of 1999, one night I was ironing something. I said pharmacy and dressing professional, whatever. So I had to iron a nice shirt or slacks or something. And the tops of my feet were itching really badly, and I looked down and my ankles and feet were really swollen. It really freaked me out. So I went to the doctor, and I was experiencing symptoms of heart failure, congestive heart failure. So they did some more tests. Ended up, did I have the biopsy before that? I'm trying to remember the chronology of things, but I ended up having the pressures in my heart chambers tested and had a biopsy checked, and I also had a diagnostic thoracoscopy in February of 2000 to determine whether the problem was the pericardium, which is the sac around the heart. Sometimes that can get stiff and restrict the heart's movements, and so that's a constrictive pericarditis, it's called. It's a form of heart failure. Or restrictive cardiomyopathy, which is not the sac around the heart, but the actual muscle becomes fibrous and stiff and can't expand and contract normally. My pericardium was fine. It was the heart muscle. I had a brutal experience post-op. I was switched to the fentanyl patch that day, and, don't take your morning meds, whatever. Great, so the patch takes like 12 to 24 hours to work. I woke up from that surgery with a chest tube in place, not only with no pain meds in my system, but in a hyperalgesic crisis because I was in withdrawal. That was the most brutal experience of my entire life, and I had a psychotic episode and was discharged early because they didn't want to deal with me. And yeah, that's a whole other story. Anyway, yeah, so I just kept getting sicker, and there's nothing they can really, I managed with antiarrhythmics, diuretics, whatever, to help my heart work the best it can. But I deteriorated progressively and ended up taking 5-year-long medical leaves total before accepting that I was unable to finish school. Hey.
There we go.
I'm gonna cut this off for now.